the heat and the weather that is inclement. All right, can you hear me okay? Okay, all right, like a little bit closer. The guest speaker hat is mic'd up, so you'll be able to hear her, but just a few announcements. First, welcome to CoMo Preservation. I'm Dee Wasman, a board member, CoMo Preservation. Someone walking in didn't know who we were. So just a little short blip about CoMo Preservation. Our mission statement is at the bottom and what our goals are, but preserving historic architecture is our mission goal. And we started meeting in May of 2022 and became incorporated as a 501c3 in May of 2023. So we're very new. So if you haven't heard about us, it's probably because of our newness. Yeah, thanks for coming tonight and spending this time and hearing from the great Barbra. So a few announcements and then Diana will introduce her. First of all, if you haven't already, do sign the attendance sign-in sheets. It is because when we go for grant money, they actually ask for information about attendance at meetings. And so appreciate it. If you haven't signed it, sign in. A couple of future events to point out. We're going to do a different format in July. On July 23rd, we're just going to have a board meeting followed by public input at the same time, same place. So welcome to come by, especially if you're interested in getting involved or you just want to give us your opinion about some of our tasks that we've been doing, websites, tours, we've been doing walking tours, future projects we'd love to talk about on the public input or the QR code project, we're naming it, and items like that. Guest speaker in August, it's not on here, will be Matt Federley talking about the architect Morris Frederick Bell. Anybody in here know his claim to fame in Columbia? The Francis Quadrangle design. So that area is also one of the few remaining buildings of this architect Morris Frederick Bell. So that's August. And then October speaker is John Ott, who has done a lot of the renovations and historic buildings around. Yeah, if you have any speaker suggestions, architecture related, please send them to the CoMoPreservation@gmail.com. Right now, we're taking a break because of the heat with the walking tours, but look for them to gear back up towards the September, October time period. And volunteer opportunities if you're interested. We are going to have a booth at the Popsicle Fest at the Boone County History and Cultural Center 10 to 2. That fest is. Our booth is going to be set up in front of the village. So we're going to try to focus activities at our booth on architecture, like with Legos, or I'm going to buy some mini bricks and learn about bricklaying type of things, and architecture type of terminology, vocab that kids can do an interactive activity. If you're interested in helping me out with that, that would be great. I've already learned some nerdy words with bricks that are fascinating. And so now that I know those words, when we were driving here, I'm like, that's the English bond stretcher pattern in that brick on the house. You know, just learning those just the last few days. Let's see. So if you want to help us out just an hour and help us out at the booth, that'd be great. Just email us if you're interested. We don't have the tours going now, but a big need is a tour ambassador where they help check in people, put little stickers on, to make things run smoothly. So if you're interested in being a tour ambassador, email us and get you on a list. And always, if you have a story to share, image to share about a historic property, email us that too. So, all right. Interested in being a member, it's $20 a year. You can join by clicking that QR code with your camera, or there's a paper form at the back of the yeah. So visit our booth. Hope you can come by for the public input meeting in July. And I'll turn it over to Diana. And also, yeah, thank you for this awesome venue. Thank you for Bruce with the video equipment, Nina for minutes, and our host here too. And of course, Barbara, who Diana.
Hi, everybody. Glad you came out when you were kind of getting scared in your driveway thinking a tree was going to fall on you. I'm not going to do much introducing because there is no purpose to that. Barbra Horrell is a force in and of herself. She is a key member of the African American Heritage Committee. Her passion and devotion to Columbia's history is unparalleled. And I am delighted to say that she tells me that when she trains more folks to give the African American Heritage Trail Tour, she's gonna put me in that class. So Barbara, get on up here and tell us everything about the African American Heritage Trail. If y'all have never walked it, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. I wouldn't do it in July like I did. Don't do like Diana did, do like when the better weather is better. Anyway, we're gonna just turn it over to Barbara.
That's a mistake.
I know, but I'll be over there going like this after 45 minutes. Now, I want to just tell you that she is like one of the best sports ever, because we used to hold these meetings and we just had 20 minutes for the speakers, and we bring her in, we ask her to come, all like that. I don't even know if you got any water that time.
No.
Anyway, and you know, we cut her off after 20 minutes, and she's got a lot more to say than 20 little minutes. And she came back to fill us in. So, you know, that generosity is something that I think we really need to admire. And I just love her to death.
She's kind of like me.
That's what I got.
The new brochure of the African American Trail just came off the press, and you're the first group that's gonna get a copy, okay? So I'm gonna take one and just pass them around, and the ones that are left, stay back there, because I still have to treat the library to the balance of them. But please, if everyone take one for yourself. It's a expanded version.
We got a
What we've
request
been
for you to
doing.
speak into the mic.
Where did I do it?
No, this
Oh,
one.
That's this one right there.
oh, I've got to speak into
Yes.
Yeah, you can drag
Yep.
it around with you, I think.
No, it's all right. It's heavy.
There.
I'll stay in one place. Working for you now? Okay, let's do this. The map is yours to keep. It's an expanded map in that you have everything in big letters. If you're like me, you need big letters, no matter what age you are. And it's one of a kind. In Jefferson City says that theirs is best, but ours is best because we made it bigger than their map. Inside, you've got to open it up because you've got the entire area. And how did we do this? Why is it important? We have, and if you're over 65, you knew we grew up in your Columbia and my Columbia. Okay? So, you know, it's no secret we did that. The kids now say, oh, I was at grade school over at Rockbridge Elementary, and the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders said to me, fact, not, can I say something? Fact. And I said, yes, fact, you grew up in segregated Columbia. This is a 2nd grader and 3rd grader telling me I grew up in segregated Columbia. I said, oh, what was that like? And he said, well, it was blacks over here and whites over here, but now we're together. I said, yes, you got it. So it's all together now. So what happened is what the map is about. The map is what happened when I went off to college at MU, where I didn't want to go, but they gave me a full ride, and they said, you're the first Black student that we've taken from Columbia at MU, so you have to go. Plus, my mother said, everything's paid for. Goodbye, you out there. So once I looked up and saw what we were talking about, and the kids would say, you're from Columbia? Oh, the kids from St. Louis, Kansas City would say, you're from Columbia. They didn't know what Columbia was about because they had to stay out there and we had to stay over here until all at once were blended. So the next thing we're going to talk about is my Columbia. And they go, you're Columbia? I said, yeah, I was born and raised. My house is still standing on Worley and Garth. If you want to go by, wave at the house. They said, you really were born in Columbia? Nobody was born in Columbia. I said, you don't know the treasures we know. And so that's the reason for the map. That's the reason for all of us being here together, doing what we do best, blending.
The microphone, I think, on the. Yeah.
Oh, I'm taking it off. Oh, I forgot to turn that on. Why do you give me these contractions? I am not technically good. Challenge. When I was working, this friend of mine that's sitting in the back there, Zach used to come down and even turn on the computers to make sure I knew how to turn my computer. Don't you say anything. That was how I got introduced to technology. But what I was saying is that Columbia that we know, oh, come on. The Columbia that I know, now you know. All of us that grew up in Columbia, Donna and all of us, Donna's second generation of us growing up in Columbia. She's a little younger, a couple of years younger, a lot of years younger. But anyhow, we know what we had in Columbia on our side of town. But you didn't know that we had all of this over here, these jewels that were hidden. So that's the reason for the map. What I'm going to talk to you tonight about is 3 new markers that just, and I'm not lying to you, I swear, the guy from Parks and Recreation called me at 4 o'clock and said, guess what, Miss Barbara? I said, what? He says, your last 3 markers just arrived today. So everything's falling into place this week except this storm. Okay. We've got our last 3 markers that have been paid for. It's this little thing. This thing. You want me to throw it off? Just throw it off. Okay. No more of that. All right. The last 3 markers are in. And what's going to happen is that we're going to put the markers in the ground, but we're not going to do the dedication of those 3 markers until the fall, because we want everybody to be able to come and enjoy it. We always have a celebration when we do, if you've ever been to a marker celebration, the company that pays the $2,500 for a marker gets to make comments and help to present the marker. And so those markers will be 1, and I'm really excited about this one. Guess what? It's going to be on Broadway. It's going to be at 7th Street. And it is, can you imagine?
Oh, wait.
It's not there, cheater. It's John Lang. It's John Lang Sr. Now, what do you know about John Lang Sr.? John Lang Sr. was a free man, Creole, came out of Louisiana, followed his enslaved wife to Columbia from Kentucky. He followed her all the way from Kentucky because she was enslaved to the 15th president of the University of Missouri, who later became the man that created Columbia College. He came in here and he did university, then he created Columbia College. And him being a free man, he could go anywhere he wanted to go. I'm fine. Okay. He could go anywhere he wanted to go, never get up and stand behind me. Okay. And so he decided that this was where they were going to be. So he had all this free, he was free. He could come and go as he wanted because the president told the founding fathers in Columbia, he's free. Don't bother. I've paid $50 that he can every year go anywhere he wants. And guess what he did? He took over Columbia. He had the first dairy farm. He had the first meat market. He sold meat and produce to both the Union and the Confederate armies. Wise man, because guess what? He was mulatto. He could pass for any color that he had to be that particular day. So he was not Black enough to be in the Black community, but he was also not white enough to be totally in the white community. So he kind of went his own way. So guess what? The Columbia Public Schools named Lang School. And all these years, they didn't know that was John Lang, the Black man. People were trying to say John Lang because they took the E off of his name and made it John Lang, and made it Lang School here in Columbia. But that school was named after John Lang. He also was a property owner, and he owned a part of the area called Sharpin. And that's the area north of Broadway. Broadway at one time was the dividing line from Black Columbia and White Columbia. When I graduated from high school, we went downtown for the first time really first time to buy things. And we went to, you're never gonna believe this, Montgomery Wards is where Tiger Spirits is down on 9th Street, 9th and Cherry, that Connor building right across from Hall Theater. We went there to buy purses for prom, little purses for the prom. And then before then, we shopped on our own and mostly in cities. And people came into the community, the Black community to sell their clothing. So we never went on that side of Broadway until integration, as they call it. And the time that we came in 59, when I graduated, don't even try to figure it out. When I came in 59 to figure out what we were going to wear at the prom. So we all had our prom dresses, went to Montgomery Wards to get purses, went to J.C. Penney's, which is at CJ's, where CJ's is on Broadway. That was J.C. Penney's. Parks was next door. If you're from Columbia, you knew those places, okay? Those were the new things for us. We all at once were on that side of Broadway, except once a year when Douglas Band marched down Broadway, everybody stopped because that was the biggest and the baddest band in Columbia at the time, but we were still segregated. So all of those things came to fruition in this jewel that we call ours. It's yours, but it's ours. It's the history and the technology of Columbia, of the Columbia schools. It's the history of what we went through as integrating and as segregated. It's important that all of you understand that we all are part of this whole thing. And that's the reason we want the map to show that you can do everything that we do. And Diane says she wants to do the map. Wait till she leads her first group through there, and I'm going to let her do it all by herself. Okay? All right? She's going to tell you about Annie Fisher, because we've got some real heroes. One of the schools that I worked with, I did the hero story. And I did Lang, Annie Fisher, and Blind Boone. And those little kids knew everything. So they are teaching our children about the history of Columbia as well as the history of the world. John Lang, back as I was telling you, is going to be at 7th and Broadway.
Can I say that?
Huh?
Is that all right to release that information?
Yeah, it's common knowledge. In fact, the marker's going up as soon as we can get them some dirt dug around at 7th and Broadway, right where the library used to be. It's going to be in front of the library, the old library. The next new marker that we're putting up is housing, special housing. Have you ever heard of a shotgun house? Okay. Did you know that there are 3 shotgun houses on Garth Avenue? I didn't I? There are 3 shotgun houses that were built by a Black builder at the time. His name is Luke McQuitty. And Luke McQuitty has an extended family right here in Columbia. And some of his great-grandchildren did not realize that their great-grandfather was the famous Luke McQuitty that did the building. The house that we moved from Garth and Worley, I have to put it in my head, Garth and Worley to the Historical Society is the McQuitty house. But we're going to put the marker at the original house. So that's the second new marker that's going up. The third new marker is nobody that anybody has ever heard of, a guy by the name of Rufus Logan. And who is Rufus Logan? He was the first Black newspaper owner here in Columbia. Back in the 1900s, he was a student at Lincoln University, but he wanted everybody back home in Columbia to know what was going on, so he wrote the newspaper. He wrote the newspaper for Columbia and for Lincoln University, Jefferson City. And so that was his tie, and the group that had wanted to be his provider is the United Way group. And so the marker is going to be on Ash, right between the parking lot for United Way and the space there It's you, and all the markers you will see, they will be facing the street. So, you know, you don't have to break your neck trying to see what behind there. But all the markers that are given have designation of who bought the signage. Okay? People are still asking, can we do more? I think we're running out of new buildings, but things keep popping up because this is historical, not what's happening now. The only one that I would love to have seen more of would have been the house on Providence Road that you barely see, that can barely see, and that was the Harvey House. And you know why I want you to see the Harvey House? Believe it or not, I lived in the Harvey House. My Uncle B. Harvey owned it. And that was a traveler space. It was like Holiday Inn for Blacks. Because as Blacks travel between Kansas City and St. Louis on what we call the Chitlin Trail, that was the Black version of 70, it was 40 at the time, Highway 40. That they had no place to stay between Kansas City and St. Louis, except when they came through Columbia or Jefferson City. They had places that were designated, people's homes that was designated for the entertainers. The entertainers that stayed in Columbia are being noted as some that are part of the new McKinney building that the city just bought. Some of those entertainers entertained there, but they stayed in private homes or the Harvey House. The Harvey House, I'll make you to know where it was. The Harvey House was a 3-story house that across from the Douglas Pool. And there's a very small little picture there that shows the cafes that was next to it. And if you can see just a little site there, that's the Harvey House. They didn't have any big pictures of the Harvey House at the first, but the pictures that we have as a family shows the Harvey House yard. It doesn't show the house itself. So I'm going to stop. Questions. If you see something on the map you want to ask me. Yes, Jerry.
Wasn't there a house that was on the same Chitlin Trail, as you called it, in Columbia, right around the corner up the street from the where they were playing on Fifth Avenue on Fifth Street?
The Dolly House?
Up halfway or so in the Sharp End area.
It was the Dolly House.
The Dolly.
It was called the Dolly House. And the Dolly House was at the corner of Ash and 6th Street, right across from the Armory. It was a big 2-story house that was owned by Mr. Coleman, who owned a lot. He was one of the early leaders, Black leaders of Columbia, here in Columbia. And their pictures are all there. You see the pictures of all the men. Those were the guys that were basically the ones with the money here in Columbia. There's the Tibbs brothers. There was 3 Tibbs brothers. There was Mr. Alvin Coleman, Mr. Noble, who has you all just honored the Noble Court group. And then there was a couple of others, Mr. Anderson Logan, and some of the other guys. The picture that you see there of all the men. Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned Mr. Noble. Why come y'all haven't never recognized Noble Court as being the first Black subdivision of Columbia?
Well, that's a controversy one. It's a Black subdivision within the Black community. You and I've had that conversation.
Yeah, but the mayor can claim it as a proclamation, and if you look at the information from the city, it's listed as L.M. Noble subdivision.
It is.
So the mayor said that it is the first Black, it's a proclamation, I have it on my phone.
Well, it
says that L.M. Noble subdivision is the first Black subdivision of Columbia, but
in the Black community.
But it's
in the Black community.
City of Columbia.
It's in Columbia. Now, you and I've had that discussion, and the city's had that discussion.
The city
It
of
is
Columbia,
now.
he filed it with the city of Columbia. And so that's the city of, it doesn't say in the city of Columbia, it says the city of Columbia. It's filed down at the court, down at the city building, and it says that he filed it in 1957 with the city of Columbia. It doesn't say the Black community, it doesn't say the Black subdivision, it says the city of Columbia. But yet you refuse to recognize
We
Mr.
can-
Noble as being the owner, and he did it by himself. But yet you recognize Miles Manor because you live there.
No,
but
no,
you
no, no, no.
Refuse to recognize Mr. Noble.
This is an ongoing discussion in the Black community.
It's
But-
not an ongoing.
Well, you're
discussion
the
because
only
it's
one
a
that's,
proven
you're the,
fact.
you are the
The
only one
mayor claimed it
that's
as a
arguing it. We're not
proclamation.
arguing the point.
I'm not arguing the point. I'm saying the mayor claimed it as a proclamation that Noble Court is the first Black subdivision. And so you saying our mayor, Barbara Buffalo, declared a Noble Court as the first Black subdivision of Columbia, and you saying that's not true?
No, I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
You did not hear me say it's not true.
Okay.
I said,
Where is?
Noble Court is right down the street, across the street in between Worley and Sexton Road.
okay,
And Mr. Noble, the Historical Society just recognized Mr. Noble's house, but he has never been given the honor that he rightly deserves as one single Black man that built the first Black subdivision in Columbia, Missouri. He's never been honored for that.
how you get an, let me answer a question of how you get an honor. $2,500 that's brought to the group as a indicator that you want a marker in your subdivision will get you one. And that's what everybody that has put a marker in all of these areas has bought.
But it seems like to me that the African American.
We have no money.
Heritage Trail
It's,
would want to honor the African American heritage, not $25,000.
Well, listen.
I'm sure the Black
but
community
listen,
and some of these fine people here would be more than happy to
well,
support.
when I tell you what,
$2,000.
when you get to 2,500, like
Oh,
I
when I
told you,
get it.
no, you and
When I
I
get
talked
it.
about this.
Okay, when I get
Let's
it.
get it clean.
Okay,
When you and I talked about this, I said, $2,500 will buy you a marker.
mhm.
Anybody, any group that you want.
And
to
I
get-
asked you, let's work together as a team to get a.
We
marker
don't
for
have
our
any
group.
money. We don't have money.
did you-
None of us had money.
I said, let's work together to
We are-
get the word out and take donation and sponsors.
Well,
to
see,
get
we
to
have
know
enough
more.
going on right now trying to get these markers
Okay.
up. But every group that wants a marker will have a marker if they give the $2,500 and they say the site that they want to identify.
So
That's bottom line.
what group sponsored these markers that are going up here?
Look at each one of the markers.
I
It
looked
says,
at them, I went and seen, they're sponsored by businesses and
right, and
organizations.
that's
in
how, that's
Columbia.
who's done it.
So you went and asked them
No,
for a
no,
donation.
no.
They came to you and
They
said.
came
"We
to
want
us.
Okay, so let's go to them and ask them if they
We
would
are-
give Mr. Noble a marker.
Let me tell you,
It's called teamwork,
anybody that
collaboration.
wants to do a marker, that's fine. We're not above it, we're not below it, and we're not complaining about it, but we are a volunteer organization and we're down to 5 people now. And all of this has been turned over to the city, and from now on, this is part of the city historical district. All of these it's turned back to the city. We didn't intend to keep it. We only started Sharp End, which was going to be one thing that we were identifying. We wanted to make sure that Fifth Street was identified as the Sharp End. And from that came, when it was all over, people
Well,
said,
you
well,
don't even have a marker for Wounded Knee and Cemetery
We-
Hill or the
listen,
Paradise Club. Those are historical.
Cemetery
Black
Hill
things.
has a marker.
Okay, well then Wounded Knee and the Paradise Club
those
deserve
were-
one also, along with Mr. Noble. You can't pick and choose what African American history, this is this discussion we had. You can't pick and choose what African American history that
Can
you
I
want
just
to honor.
interrupt here very briefly to help this move forward?
I don't understand what she wants, but
Well.
we don't have any
I
money.
think I think the step we're missing here is Barbara Horrell knows how this developed. But if you're like me, I don't really know as much as I want to know about how this group started and how it functions. And I think you were explaining a little bit about, you began many years ago, you were just gonna do Sharp End, and then it grew because, correct me when I go wrong, it grew because organizations came to her and said, well, we would like to donate and we would like a marker. And so it grew and grew and grew,
They wanted to
but her
identify.
committee herself is just, it's just like CoMo preservation. It's all volunteer and they don't have a bankroll.
We don't have any
I
money.
never said they did.
So what I
I'm
think
well
what,
aware of how the
can you just
process
kind of
works.
rewind us and tell us how it got started?
Okay.
And where we are today?
It's,
And that'll kind of help us figure out, if you want a marker, what are the steps? Because I think you've outlined
The
it, but maybe
steps
just
is
help us.
working
get started.
together as a collaboration.
We
to
have-
make the situation come about.
we
Because
have,
It's not one person or a group or organization.
I
It's
totally
people want to
agree.
preserving the African-American history here in Columbia, Missouri.
And I don't
Those are the
disagree.
steps that
I-
need to be done. Whether you writing it about it in the newspaper and asking for donations, because
We-
I'm
we
sure
didn't-
there's
we
a
don't
lot of
write
people that
anybody.
would give.
we
Well,
write anybody.
What I really want to do is move the conversation forward and make sure that everybody in the room has a chance to speak up. I can understand that you two have something to talk through and that's great. But I think this venue is about sharing information with the whole room. And I think a lot of people have a lot of questions and I don't want anybody to miss out on this great opportunity. So,
Well, I don't either, and I wasn't trying to take up the full conversation. I was just wanting to ask a question about Mr. Noble. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
all right, thanks for being here. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
I know
All
you
right,
do.
so rewind. us a
Sharp
little
end.
bit.
Was our first shot. And how sharp end even came a discussion. One of the guys at the church was talking to, at that time, James Witt, who was working for the city. And that was his Sunday school teacher. And Larry said to him, when I was in the service, everybody knew about sharp end. And he said, how'd you not know about sharp end? He said, when we were stationed at Fort Leonard Wood, or we were stationed up at Sedalia, we would come on the weekends as Black soldiers, we'd come into Columbia and we would go to Sharp End. We would eat and party, with Sharp End. And so from that became the discussion of why is Sharp End not identified in Columbia? People were saying Sharp End was the next building over, which is after Sharp End closed, there was a strip mall put in there that was, that had some restaurants in it. And everybody said, well, Sharp End was the cutting and knifing and everybody, wrong area, Sharp End was gone. This was a group that was on Ash. So we had to clear that up. So Sharp End, as we identified it, is the notation that you have on each one of the pictures there. This is what we have gathered as information about each of the sites. People I've had 3 people to just walk in and give me the $2,500 donation, said, would you donate this for me for this building, but I don't want my name on it. And those are the ones that you see that say no, anonymous. The Kirkland house that just been sold. Man wanted a marker. He believed, he was a professor at the university. He wanted to make sure that somebody identified the fact that Mr. Kirkland was the first Black teacher at the College of Agriculture at the university. And so that particular marker, when I see him, I said, did you go by and see your marker? And he just smiles and he says, what marker? There have been 3 of those identified checkbooks written for this particular area that we'd like to say. The university graduate students did the marker that's over by the lynching over on Stewart Road. There's a marker there. They did that themselves. They gathered the money from the the Minority Graduate Student Association, and they put the marker there. So the markers are coming from where people know there are sites that are being opened. And if you work with a group and they say they want to put it there and give their money, we'll build a marker. The markers it takes about 6 months for a marker to be built because they are steel and you can't tear them down. Somebody tried to tear down the one and it came the next day. The city manager said, it's back up. The city mayor said, it's back up. They bought the one to replace it. So other questions that you have? Anyone else? Please take your map with you. I think it's the newest thing. The first map was just a fold over that had a few people on it. But this one is an intense personal map that you can have and show. A lot of our kids have been going through this. I've been doing the ones at the schools. I had all the eighth graders. This past year, I wrote a program for eighth graders. And all the eighth graders in Columbia Public Schools, believe it or not, went through the Boone House and the trail. And that's what she's talking about, a lot of walking. It's 2.5 miles doing the shortcut. And the shortcut is Second Baptist, all of that corner, because that was the hub of Black businesses, was right between Ash and 5th Street and 4th Street. And 3rd Street, which is now Providence Road, okay? So after all of that, the kids have walked it, and now they're bringing their families. I see kids on this in the stores, and they say, that's the lady that took us on the tour, and this is the house that we started with. They love it. The kids love it. The first time they were in the Boone House, I said, we're going back to 1927, because the house, if you haven't been to the house is decorated as it was in 1927 when Boone and his wife Eugenia lived there. And I said, now I want you to tell me what you think when you walk in. And the first little kid said, it smells just like my grandmother's house. Oh, okay, that's good. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have a question about the shotgun houses on Garth
Uh-huh.
Street. You said there were 3 shotgun houses,
Uh-huh.
and one of them was moved to the state historical,
Okay,
the Boone County. Are the other 2 still there?
one is still workable, and that's the one at, before you get to Ash. There's a house in there that's sitting like this, and that's a shotgun house, but they've turned the door and put the door on the side.
Oh.
Okay, it's at Oak and Garth.
Oh,
And that's one of the houses that he built. That's the kind of houses he built because the lots are narrow. And there were all homes in that area. And so he put homes where he had a space, and that's what the spaces were.
So is that the south of Ash then?
It's the west of Ash,
I know, but is it north or south?
north.
Okay.
Right where Ash,
Yeah,
coming up Ash
right,
to Garth,
right.
turn on Garth, going north. About midway there, you're gonna see a little white house that's sitting like this, little narrow house. That's the shotgun house. Yes, ma'am.
what was Mr. McQuitty's first name?
Luke, Luke McQuitty. It's Luther. His name is Luther.
Oh,
You know, it's like Fred Douglass. Now we all at once are Frederick Douglass. I graduated from Fred Douglass High School.
right, yeah.
They said, well, that we have to use the proper name. And I said, you didn't use the proper name when it was calling us, okay? Yes, sir.
The building where Tony's piece is, there's a marker there.
Uh-huh, that's
Um,
Mr. Tibbs.
And I read it, but then off it went. When I was in high school in the 60s, in the early 60s, I played on occasion with Frankie Williams.
Mm-hmm,
And we were going to be playing one night for the Thunderbird Club
mm-hmm, that was underneath.
underneath.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Frankie said, we've got a job down there. I said, okay, can I go set up my drums? And
Uh-huh.
he said, sure. So I had enlisted a friend to help me, and I went down those stairs. And
Straight down,
that door,
straight down,
beautiful.
straight down.
It had like, what do you call it, tufted, you
Yeah.
know, and it was kind of maroon color with
Yeah.
little round windows. Open the door, everything was sparkly red. And
Yes.
maroon and all this.
Those were the
and
good days.
Nobody in there except one guy behind the bar.
And that was,
And these 2 little white kids come in.
that was Mr. What did they call Mr. Bloach? Bloach was Cochran,
Okay,
Mr. Cochran.
Mr.
on-
Cochran was not happy.
That you was
He
down there,
said, he
yeah,
said, what are you doing?
uh-huh,
And I was holding my drums, and my friend was holding the other parts of them, and I said, I'm playing here tonight with Phil Frankie. And he said, no, you're not.
there was a certain thing that happened with Sharpin. I never got to Sharpin. You had to be 18 years old You had to have your, oh, back to your microphone, girl. When I drop the mic, I'm going home. Okay. You had to be 18 years old. You had to, is it working?
Yes, easier if you stand there.
You know, I can't stand one place all the time. I'm a Sagittarian. We move around, okay? That's- You had to be 18. You could not go on Sharpie unless you were going for a reason. And Mr. Monroe's mother had a restaurant right there on the corner, right where the post office is. She had a restaurant there. And when we kids would go to the movies, we'd have to go by to get Irma's money to go to the movies. And so we would all stand on the corner and wait till she crossed the street. Aunt Vi would send us all sandwiches to take to the movie. We would go to to Broadway and go up one block. You're up one block with me, go back to 6th Street, which is in the neighborhood, because the theater was the old Boone Theater where the parking garage is. No, right there where you did the movies, where the Boone Theater was, right on 8th Street and 8th and Ash. So we never got on, I never got there. Most of the guys didn't get there because there was a pool hall, there was the lodge hall there. There were apartments above the place. And the real truth is, Sharp End is not that area. Sharp End is the street behind it. That's how they identified how people got to the addresses for the people that lived above the Sharp End. But everybody calls this Sharp End. So let it ride, it's Sharp End.
So what happened to Sharp?
Huh?
What happened?
Sharp End is now.
I mean, what happened? How did it?
Okay, you never heard the history?
I don't know that, yeah.
1954. I'm going to be very honest and political. 1954, the federal government and the city of Columbia decided that the slums where the Blacks lived needed to be cleaned out. So thus came what they called urban renewal. Urban renewal, before urban renewal, every place there on Providence, which is 3rd Street, all of those were homes. We had no projects. We did not know what affordable housing was. The only affordable housing that we knew about was Mr. Dobie owned a lot of houses on where the liquor store is on Ash and 3rd Street. He had a big apartment buildings, but that was not projects. I mean, it was families that lived there. That's just where their families lived. But we didn't know what a project was. But all at once, it was just terrible that those people lived where the university was at this end. What was here? 40 before 70. And when they came to football games and we were starting to get real popular, we need to clean all of that out. Because it got to look good coming down through there, going to the football field, right? Because there was no, at that time, there was no Stadium Boulevard or any of that. This was the way to the football stadium. So it all got cleaned out. Homes were bought, but they were not given enough money to buy another home. Plus the catch was, whites didn't let us move into there, didn't want us in the neighborhood. And we were still locked into this particular area. So a lot of families didn't have places to go. The money was not enough. That's urban renewal as we know it.
Urban removal.
Yeah, it was urban removal. That's what it was. And it happened in major cities, but we never thought it would get to little country Missouri, little country town in Columbia. Yes, ma'am.
So did you work, how did this fit with the work that, Rudy Kelly did in 2015? You know, he did that great magazine. There's a magazine that Rudy Keller, when he worked for the.
The
Columbia Daily
the Sharpin magazine.
Yeah, it was a whole magazine.
It's
on
everybody got one.
Everybody?
We sent them out to everybody. And when we did Sharpin, my Sharpin books are here.
No, I've got a copy.
Yeah.
I'm not letting go.
Yeah, everybody that subscribes to the Tribune.
So did you work with Rudy Keller on that project?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
My precious father, it's beat up every time I go out. This is the book that everybody is, and everybody got one of those. And if it didn't pertain to you, most people threw them away. And that was one of the most valuable things that if you really want to know the Black community. And here is the original Sharpin Committee. Mr. Sion Williams, 100 years old, wrote a lot of the text that we had in this particular book. But this is the Sharpin book. Tell you something else that I have. People give me stuff and stuff shows up in my mailboxes. The making of the Black community in Columbia. This was made in 1981 as a contribution to Blacks in Columbia. Somebody gave me this also, and it's got pictures of Black homes, and it talks about the lost properties of Black families. Here's the most interesting one, and I gave them the copy there. This was a color directory. And this had every Black person that lived in Columbia. Every Black person that lived in Columbia, they were listed, and the members of their families and how many and where they worked. This was our telephone directory. This was our directory. And it was done by Boone County National Bank in 1927.
Was it an annual thing?
No, it was a one-time thing that somebody back in the day decided to make. It showed up in my mailbox saying, you should have this. So it's interesting who has the books. So it's a lot of history floating around and a lot of history that's still to be identified. But the Kirkland House is going to be great. The Kirkland House that the city just bought, but most of that private money that we raised was because people just walked in and said, here's 10,000, here's 5,000. We want to see this property and him identified because he was a very famous, he was born a slave, went to Europe and learned how to irrigate and how irrigations were. I know I'm moving back to the phone that you told me to stand there. Okay, all right. But, you know, some things you just don't remember. And so that property is going to be important because it's tied into the farmer's market because they said in the day, the Black farmer would take all of their stuff to Flat Branch to sell. Now you can imagine the man coming with his little wagon and him and his grandchildren, his grandson are there in Flyer. They would go to the Flat Branch, stand around and sell all their market. That was where the first open markets were. And he sold all of his vegetables and the picture there on the front.
Your banner.
Yeah, him and his grandson. Yeah, you've got all of those pictures and you've got the history that goes with them. So hopefully they're going to put all of that in there. And Mr. Noble's, as you mentioned, Mr. Noble's trucks and his property is listed also in this book. And he has a listing of what he did. Mr. Noble was our paper giant. He collected trash paper and he had a place on Park Avenue and his place, that area burned right across from Douglas School. They had a big fire. And after that, we got a skating rink because he built a skating ring after that in that space that was left. So Mr. Noble is very identifiable.
Which one is it?
Who's that?
Well, I'm asking for Mr. Noble.
Oh, Mr. Noble
I was gonna
is-
see your banner.
Mr. Noble is, Mr. Noble is here.
Oh, okay.
He had a big trucking line also.
Alright.
So you've got all the Black history, as many pictures as we could find about the kids and you've even got you even gave them permission to use the colored directory in that also. And if you go to the Historical Society, they're beginning to get, our state's Historical Society is beginning to identify and use a lot of our stuff that They had history of St. Louis and Kansas City, but they didn't have Columbia and Jefferson City. Jefferson City is now trying to put together a trail in the Black community from Lincoln University because the Foot was very popular in Jeff City. That was the only Black school that we could go to at the time at Lincoln.
Now,
Mhm.
if people want to get involved and help at this point, how do we do that?
Guess what?
What?
We're gonna drop the mic as soon as these last 3 markers go down and we're through. We've done our job.
So is there an avenue for us to keep
That
it
you,
going?
yeah, you keep it going by working with the district.
The school district?
No, the city district.
Oh,
See, all of that's being turned over. If you look now and they've just put the flags up for the
Mhm.
district. Sharp End District is all listed there. Up on
so we need to contact
Fifth
Nikki
Street.
Davis?
Nikki Davis, them would take it over as soon as we finish these last markers in October.
Okay,
Okay?
so do you think she's gonna put together a committee or?
You know what?
All right. So
Barbara's,
does everybody know
Barbara's
what we're
dropping the
talking about
mic
here?
and going into the sunset.
No,
So the downtown city development, the executive director's name is Nikki Davis.
Uh-huh.
And she's got an office on what, 10th
On 10th
Street?
Street. She's
Yeah,
at the
on 10th
office.
Street. And you can contact her, and I think they call it
It's the
thedistrict.com.
district. Yeah.
And so if they're gonna take over the promotion of, this history, which would be great, right? I mean,
It's,
word out is
it's
good
world,
thing.
it's city history.
right, it's city
Yeah.
history. As you pointed out, it's yours and it's ours. We're all together now.
Yep. It's inclusion.
That's a possible way of getting, and you said you turned your materials over to, State Historic Society?
My personal stuff.
No,
yes.
no, not your personal stuff. I know who you are. You're like me. And, Nina, you're our local librarian here. Do you guys have this on hand here?
yes,
Okay, so, you can come and look at this right here at your Columbia Public Library. And I recommend you stopping in their coffee shop, going up there and just. reading
We're
the
trying to
whole
get a
thing.
reprint of that, but when the Tribune went out, we got all the copies that they had
Uh-huh.
and we gave them away at, its settings and different parties. And so, the 4 that I have are sacred. They'll probably blow up if you try to go out of the room with it.
Yeah, if we were off the record, I would tell you that I would photocopy it for you. Email.
Oh, did I hear her say that? Okay. Any other questions before I sit down? Hi, Stephen. I had to make sure I saw you, right?
Does any
Other questions?
have more
before I sit down?
questions?
Yes, ma'am.
This might be a dumb question, but do we
No
know
dumb
why,
questions.
why it's called the sharpen?
It's called, the sharp end has there are 3 definitions of sharp end. Sharp end, what you used to say was because we had to dress up to go there, right, Green? You had to be sharp in. Black men.
What did I do?
Black men, I know, he hates me. He's a giver the mic. Black men always wore fedoras, hats. Have you been downtown lately? I dare you to go up this street to the Sharp End and look up that emblem that's across the street. That's a black man in a fedora. Okay? That's Sharp End. That was one version of Sharp End because it was an entertainment center. It was a recreation center. It was a business center. And you only went to Sharp End for business. At night, there was the Green Tree and other restaurants that were for adults only. Okay? But Sharp End, the word is, the second version was, it's that street that's behind the post office. That was the street name for the Sharp End was the street name, and they had numbers, people's apartments had numbers on them. And so I lived at 11, if you lived there, you lived at 11 Sharp End, to go up that alley to your apartment.
So it was an alley that was named Sharp End?
It was that was the street it was there. That was the alley.
So not Walnut, but another street.
Walnut was always there. But everybody, like I said, there are 3 versions of Sharp End. People make up stuff as they went along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that alley still there? 'Cause
No.
Okay,
That's post office owns that whole area, all the way
Okay.
to, what's
because on either side of the post office somewhere, there is an alley. that
It
has
was-
parking along it too, that
Oh,
has
I don't know
parallel
about that.
parking.
But when Sharpton was there, the two buildings were here, the buildings were here.
Right.
I know. The buildings were here. It's like a song and dance, isn't it? The buildings were here on Fifth Street in that one block. Behind it was homes, but there was a alleyway there that led to the apartments that people went to on both sides of the alleyway. Behind the buildings, there were how people got to their apartments.
It's-
But all
it's-
that was flattened to make the building, the post office building, right?
Well, before the
rear post office.
before the post office was there, that was the St. Luke Baptist Church, St. Luke Methodist Church was on that corner. And then after St. Luke left, St. Luke left, because he said it was crumbling and everything. So St. Luke moved over into town. And the next thing there was the New Way Lumber Company was on that corner. And then after Sharpton went, New Way Lumber Company moved up in front of where the police station is now.
Now, who owned New Way?
New Way people,
Johnson.
whoever that, yeah, there's Johnsons. Yeah, it was the Johnstons. Yeah, it was the Johnston's family. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I'm confused.
It's-
So Sharpian was a name of a street or name of an alley?
It was the name of an alley.
Like
Oh.
alley A is a
Yeah.
good example.
Okay.
Or
okay.
the alley that's next to the parking garage, that if you go one more
If you
block
go one
towards
more
the
block, yeah.
west.
You know, you can go up, do you know you can go up the alleys behind the police station all the way down to 4th Street? You can take that alleyway and go all the way to 10th Street. Just walk up the alleys. That's how we get, sometimes when we want to get a place fast, we just go up the alleys between the banks and every place else. And you get all the way to 10th Street and you're like, well, hey, I'm up here. I didn't even have to move my car.
Wow. Gonna try it.
Yeah.
I've seen the police car go through there too.
Well, the police live up there, right? Yes, ma'am.
Um, Is there a way to get some more of these for the library?
Honey, yes, I'm gonna bring you a bunch for the library. I've got a case in my car for the library.
Oh, wonderful.
We're trying to, I stole those out of the group because we just got off the press and they put a bunch in my car and said, you go into someplace, you might want to take these.
Because we have the old ones that
I
we're
know.
making copies of.
No,
And
don't make
people-
copies. We got plenty of them.
People.
I will bring you a
think that's
case of them to
they're
put,
very
because
popular.
you all distributed them very nicely for us.
Very popular.
And we're trying to put them in churches, homes, anybody that wants them. We want to make them accessible. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, Parks and Recreation, all of those areas are going to have those.
Before they print more, can they fix McAllister? It's in here two ways, and I'm sensitive to that, because that's my last name.
Okay.
So they've got McAllister with an extra C and then one without.
McAllister, the man,
Dr. McAllister. yeah.
Dr. McAllister had he was one C.
It's in
It
here.
wasn't McAllister.
It's in here both ways.
Oh, yeah, well, that's how it's listed in 2 or 3 places. Okay, Dr. Mack was the only Black dentist we had in town, and his building is on the corner of Ash and Garth, the White House there. That was his. We had the best teeth in town. Because on Sunday morning, Dr. Mack would look at you and say, did you brush your teeth? How many times did you brush? Okay. There was no getting around because you either had them as your teacher at Douglas, your Sunday school teacher at Sunday, and Monday morning you were right back looking at them. And on Saturday, when you were going to play basketball or something at school, you saw all those teachers. We were a guarded neighborhood. It takes a village to raise Black children at that time, and they were there, okay? You got in trouble on Garth, and you got home wherever you was, your mother knew, her neighbor knew, and everybody else knew. That happened everywhere, right? We're not unique. We all have same red blood. We all live and die, but we all grew up with the same kinds of culture. Thank you, and I'm gonna go sit down unless somebody has another question. Take this.
Oh, all right.
Bye. Can I drop the mic? Oh, I just love dropping the mic.
Gonna give this to Bruce because they know they don't want to touch that.
Yeah, you don't get toys either. Hey, good girl.
Yeah, I'm not following you around. I gotta-
Very nice, thank you.